This is the beginning of the fall of the world's only superpower and rise of another superpower. Here we will going to talk about USA and Russia. How USA is losing its superpower tag since their messier evacuation of Afghanistan and Russia's all-out attack against Ukraine. Now some world leaders are not taking the call from US President Joe Biden. Here I am talking about the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Here in this topic, I would like to tell you what will be the consequences of this event and how USA will going to lose its Middle East influence due to its adamant behavior of thrusting its power by using dollar diplomacy. And here I would like to tell you why UAE and Saudi Arabia are not taking call from US President Joe Biden. Let's start the discussion by saying that why UAE and Saudi Arabia is not taking the call from US President Joe Biden and why Biden is so desperate to take the call these two leaders. Actually, this information has been broke out by Wall Street Journal. So according to WSJ, both Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and UAE Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan have been unavailable to Biden after US requests were made for discussion over global oil price. USA showed their interest for discussion when USA and UK banned Russian oil imports over Ukrainian crisis. These two Middle East leaders reluctant to take call from US President due to the Biden's foreign policy since he took office. The relationship between Gulf nation and USA is deteriorating over the so many external and the internal issues. Those have been internationalized by Biden administration. Saudi and UAE leaders are not in good mood due to the United States policy over Iran, especially the Houthi rebels. They wanted more support from US in Yemen's civil war as well as the legal immunity to Prince Mohammed in US. Houthi rebels are Shia sect leaders supported by Iran, and these rebels have already firing the ballistic missiles deep within the Saudi Arabia and UAE, targeting their oil facilities. In 2020, the Houthi attacked the Saudi oil refinery. That cost Saudi Arabia billions of dollars. Because of this kind of incident, the Saudi's oil export and the logistic capacity has been reduced. UAE also has been attacked by these rebels. Their oil facilities were also disturbed. So that is why this kind of uncertainties and in addition the Ukrainian crisis has fueled this kind of oil prices. Recently, the Saudi Arabia and the UAE asked the USA to deliver the surface-to-air missiles due to its shortage, but the USA was reluctant. Actually, at first, they were reluctant to supply this kind of missile to the Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Then the UAE have to fetch the Israel to surface-to-air missile. That is why they deal with the Israel to take the Barak missile systems, and they are also dealing with the India for the Akash missile system. So these kind of things are really agitating these two leaders that why the USA is behaving like that. Saudi Arabia showing their constrained behavior towards USA because Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is facing multiple lawsuits in US for eliminating of journalist called the Jamal Khashoggi in 2018 in Saudi embassy in Turkey. During 2020 US elections, Joe Biden had vowed to treat Saudi Arabia as pariah state after Khashoggi's death in 2018. The Biden had then said that this plan was to make the Saudis pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are. On the Saudi royal family, the Biden had said that they have a very little social redeeming value in the present government in the Saudi Arabia. So this kind of behavior is pushing Saudi Arabia away from the USA. The Saudi Arabia wants to take their own issue by their own hand. They are taking the issue by their own hand recently in case of Iran, in case of other matters. So they are taking their own calls. So that is why the USA is losing the grip over the Saudi Arabia. UAE is also irritated due to its entry in the Financial Action Task Force grey list. UAE paid the price due to its reluctance to not to support the US's view on the Ukraine in United Nations Security Council. UAE actually abstained to vote on Ukrainian resolution so that jittered the USA. Because of the US's influence, the UAE is in the FATF grey list. That's why the UAE facing difficulties in dealing with the other countries during doing the business, because UAE actually worked as a linker between the Europe and the Asia. The India usually do the business by using the UAE and the Dubai. UAE is the most famous city of the UAE is Dubai. That is why India do the business, and the taxation to do the business by using those cities, those who are within the UAE, is very less. That is why some countries do the business by using the UAE. Now they are facing the difficulties. Now they are facing the scrutiny because of their entry in FATF grey list, and that makes them very jittery. That's why they are not taking the call from the USA. That is why they are not taking the stand what the USA is asking them to take. And these two countries are also agitated due to the Iran nuclear deal, because the USA has almost reached to meet the demands those the Iranians are demanding, and the USA has also agreed to give the Iran the waiver they are asking for. So that is why these two countries are very, very agitated about the Joe Biden's foreign policy, about the Asian countries, about the European countries, about all over the world. They are doing the businesses. They are doing some kind of things that is jittering the other countries. And these two countries are not actually taking the call from the Joe Biden because of these kind of things. Now the question is why USA is showing its interest to talk with Saudi Arabia and UAE. As we know, Ukraine and the Russian conflict is going over the Ukraine's NATO membership. That's why USA and the UK banned the Russian oil import from consumptions, for the domestic consumption, for any kind of consumptions. That triggered the oil shortage all over the world and pushed the oil price $130 per barrel. That is the highest level in 14 years. So USA wants Saudi Arabia and UAE to increase their oil production, because these countries have capacity to ease the oil price by producing the more oil. But they said they will stick to the production plan approved between the OPEC and the group of the other producers led by the Russia, because the Russia is one of the top oil producing nation of the world. These two countries are not taking call from the Joe Biden, but they took the call from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Due to this, USA is also facing the oil crisis, and the oil price for the domestic consumption has taken a hit. For that, USA started dealing with Venezuela. That is unbelievable, because USA had no relationship with Venezuela. The US has for the first time in the years opened up the diplomatic channels with Venezuela, which is a Russian ally and has the world's largest oil reserve. So Venezuela, to show their goodwill gesture related to these kind of things, at least they are trying to amend the relationship with the USA by releasing the two Americans from the Venezuelan jail. Also, the Biden administration in the possible preclude with the Venezuela to increase the production to ease the price surge. So these kind of things is going on all around the world, because the USA is in the danger. That is why they are dealing with the Venezuela. Otherwise, they would not have deal with the Venezuela. So in my view, this is the end of the US hegemony all around the world. The USA has already enjoyed the superpower tax since 1991, when USSR was disintegrated due to the US conspiracy in Afghanistan. Now world powers are not taking their discussion or decision under the influence of the USA. They are showing their individual stands that the UAE, Israel and the India showed during the United Nations Security Council's voting over Ukrainian conflict. The USA actually become vulnerable, and when they exit the Afghanistan, leaving their fate under the terrorist leader, these kind of things was bound to happen. And the USA actually left the Afghanistans to whom they are actually fighting against. And the weak Biden liberal foreign policy put the USA in the vulnerable position. And obviously the non-military engagement during the Ukrainian conflict has revealed the US skeleton. The US since the beginning, they are reluctant to engage the Russia militarily. Recently, the Poland agreed to send the MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. That's why they handed over these planes to the USA in Germany. But the USA again showed their disinterest not to engage Ukrainian conflict against the Russia directly. There are some examples that showed that the US influence is reducing. Recently, the UAE cancelled F-35 deal with USA, and they signed the deal with the Dassault, a French company, to deliver the Rafale jets to UAE's Air Force. The India has also cancelled the dealing related to the Poseidon 8I, which is an reconnaissance planes and the drones. And the USA move during the AUKUS nuclear submarine deal with Australia jittered the French government. Now US, NATO countries, now the European countries which are included in the NATO are dealing with this separately with the Russia to strike the peace deal. The Europe is keeping the USA out of this deal because the USA is pushing the Europe to deal with the Russia militarily, keeping themselves outside. So USA is behaving like a selfish giant who wants to lecture the world on the democracy, peace and the secularism, but when it comes to their own survival, then they sacrifice the nature of the good old man. So this kind of behavior is unacceptable to the world leaders. They want the more engagement from the USA. Now we have reached our today's question. The first question is, which country is to launch Rashid unmanned rover to the moon by next year? The first option is Pakistan, second option is UAE, third is Bangladesh, fourth is Iran. Now the second question is, what is the name of the new digital currency being explored by United Kingdom? The first option is UK coin, second option is Brit coin, third option is Digibit, fourth option is Brit currency. If anyone have any questions or any doubt about this topic or about any other topic I have uploaded, please contact me through my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.